So I left school just over 5 years ago, which is really weird to think about, by the way. The school is about 15 to 20 minutes away by bus from where I currently live, so it's local. Anyway, there are some woods on one side of the school, which also extend a little bit behind the school as well. Behind those woods, there are a lot of large fields. There is also a house in the middle of those fields where an old man supposedly lives. I say supposedly because the house looks abandoned, and I've never personally seen anyone walking in or out of it. Although the area is generally considered safe, there are quite a few strange stories and actual events that have taken place around the area. The stories tell of paranormal occurrences, alleged criminal activity, anything from drug dealing to more serious crimes like kidnapping and even murder, and just weird stuff in general. However, many of these stories are not published in the news or anything, so no one really knows how many of them are true or just made up things that spread by word of mouth. One story that did make the news was about a person who was missing for about 2 months at the time. They were found tied to a tree in front of the school, on the school premises. The body was tied so tightly that they had to cut the whole tree down to remove it, so someone else must have been involved. However, nothing has been made public since then. There are many other strange things that have happened in that area, many of which have been confirmed by one of my friends who lives across the road from the school. Below, I'm going to tell you about the strangest and scariest experience I've had while being in this area, and probably the strangest thing I've ever personally encountered. A few years ago, my friends and I were playing football on the school's football pitch, like we usually did. We were there for hours, which was nothing out of the ordinary. There were about 6 of us, and there was another, separate group of about 7 or 8 people. The pitch was divided into 3 sections, and we were each occupying one section. We didn't talk to the other group because we didn't know them, and they didn't know us. My friends and I were at the end near the school, and the forest was at the complete opposite end, about 80 to 85 yards away or so. At one point, one of my friends noticed 2 people wearing masks standing still at the other end, just staring at us. The masks looked similar to the Guy Fawkes mask, but they were somewhat different. They were on the other side of the fence, so we just ignored them, thinking it was someone from the other group playing some kind of joke before joining them. However, they were still just standing there about 15 minutes later. We asked the people from the other group if they knew them or what was going on, and they said they had noticed them too, but thought they were from our group, which they definitely weren't. The 2 people stood there for about 5 more minutes before leaving, so everyone just sort of ignored what had happened and kept playing. About half an hour later, we heard a scream that sounded like a female's scream. The friend who lived across the road called his mom to make sure she was okay and to ask if she had seen anything. She said that she was all right, that she had heard the scream too and was about to call us to check if we were okay. She knew we were at the football pitch, so we just started playing again. Shortly after we resumed playing, we saw and heard a police car and an ambulance speeding on the road outside the school. The road was on the opposite side of the school, but the school had more than one building, and you could see the road between 2 of the buildings. About 10 minutes after the scream and the phone call, there were about 5 people standing where the 2 previous people had stood, just staring at us. A couple of them had masks on while the others didn't. Over the next few minutes, more and more people started joining them, coming from different areas of the woods and the fields. Again, some of them had masks, some didn't. In total, I think there were around 30 people just standing there staring at us. We obviously got scared, and it was clear that the other group playing football was scared too, Eventually, we all stopped playing and just looked at them, and they looked back at us. The other group joined us so that we could all be as far away from the group as possible. We had no idea what to do. We didn't know whether we should talk to them or not, if we made the right choice by acknowledging them, or if more of them would come, or if they would enter the pitch. I forgot to mention we weren't really supposed to be there because it was the 6-week summer holiday, so the school was closed and everything was locked up. However, someone managed to unlock a door that was facing the forest. That door was used if someone kicked a ball over the fence during phys ed, and that's how we got in. It was the only way in and out. This meant that we were trapped. We couldn't get out without going through them, and we had nowhere to go if they decided to walk toward us. It felt like we all just stood there looking at them, and them back at us for an eternity, but it was probably only a couple of minutes. We then all huddled up and decided what we should do, and we concluded that we should call the police. Even if we got in trouble for trespassing or whatever, our safety was way more important. However, we were all too scared to call 999, and as it turned out, none of us had ever done it before. One of my friends volunteered to do it, so he got his phone out and dialed a 999. He just needed to actually call the number. However, just as he was about to do so, we heard the ambulance and police cars driving the other way, and the people started walking away pretty much immediately after the cars passed the school. We decided to wait a little longer to make sure they weren't waiting for us somewhere in the forest, which we had to walk through for a couple of minutes to get to the main road. Someone from the other group actually called his older brother and his friends to come and check on us. We waited for maybe an hour more, after which we decided to get out of there, to find the guy's brother, I don't know any of their names, and quite a few of his friends waiting for us. They laughed at us at first, but then we told them what had happened and they stopped laughing. Now, it could have easily been someone just messing with us, but I highly doubt it with that many people taking part. My friends and I still don't know why they were there staring at us or what their intentions were, which probably adds to the eeriness. But yeah, this is the strangest and scariest thing I've been through in this area, where something weird was definitely going on. I say was because I haven't been there in about 2 to 3 years, but I wouldn't be surprised if strange stuff is still happening. This took place about a year ago. I live in a safe Eastern European country where not much crime happens, but I am originally from the Middle East and I only speak the local language a little bit. My girlfriend, who is local, and another friend of ours from England, who was just a tourist, decided to go for a picnic during a weekday at a famous park. This park is a popular destination for picnics, but on weekday mornings it's mostly empty, except for the main area where people have barbecues and where there are food carts for ice cream and snacks. After we hung out in the park, we decided to leave. Our friend from the UK saw some of the items on the food carts, and she was interested since it was a new culture to her. My girlfriend and she started talking about what the foods were while I was trying to find some coins since the clerk wasn't accepting cards, and I usually pay with a card. We spent about 10 minutes like this. The vendor seemed a little too friendly. He left the back of the food cart and came to our side to talk to us with his broken English, with a little translation from my girlfriend. He was talking about football with our friend from the UK and about the politics of the UK, making racist comments about its prime minister. We bought our items, but he kept talking, starting to get touchy with the girls and being weird, yelling racist things about the UK's prime minister and his race. We were trying to move away, but he didn't let us end the conversation. He asked our guest where she was staying and if she was taking a plane or a bus when she goes back. Our naive and slightly tipsy friend answered some of these questions. At this point, I decided to take over the conversation, telling the girls to start walking. I thanked the guy for the conversation and for the items, which looked delicious, and I waved at him as we walked away. He kept talking and walked with us for about 20 to 30 meters away from his food cart. Eventually, he said goodbye and left. After walking another 100 to 200 meters, it was the last moment I could see his cart due to a curve in the path and the trees. I saw that he was serving another person, so I moved on with my life. Now that we had left the main area, we had about 3 to 4 kilometers to walk before we would see anyone else. We walked about 1 kilometer and came across some public toilets that you could unlock by putting a coin in. I went inside while both girls stayed outside. While I was washing my hands, I heard the girls screaming, "He's coming back! Oh my God, what does he want?" And suddenly they yelled, "Oh no!" I rushed outside to see the same vendor grabbing both girls by their arms and pulling them toward the toilet while telling them something I couldn't understand. To give you some context, this guy was about 50 to 60 years old, relatively weak and small. I rushed at the guy to take him down, but he stepped back, raising his hands as if to show he was surrendering or trying to be friendly. I stopped and got the girls behind me, telling them to walk fast while I told the guy he needed to leave. My girlfriend told me that he was saying we should all go inside the toilet so we wouldn't have to pay multiple times. We started walking away with the girls in front of me and the guy following us. He was still trying to look friendly and was asking my friend if she was taking a plane, meanwhile making a gesture with his arm like a plane and saying, "Plane UK today or tomorrow." I just wanted to be sure, so we walked a different way to confirm he was following us, so I could legitimize the use of force toward an old man if it came to that. We changed our route and he continued to follow us. At this point, I looked around and called an Uber to the nearest location. Meanwhile, we were walking fast with him still following us. We approached some buildings under construction and were about 2 minutes away from the Uber, which had already arrived. Suddenly, the guy rushed toward us while swearing and gesturing toward the girls, mumbling something. I grabbed his arm and pushed him away. He almost fell but recovered and stepped back, continuing to follow us at a distance. He said something none of us understood, and in response, my girlfriend told him, "Go back to your cart, sir, you left it unattended," and so on. At this point, the guy unlocked his rage. He got angry, telling us there are no thieves in this country, only in the UK and wherever we came from. My adrenaline hit its peak at this moment because I saw that this guy was in a rage. This continued for about 30 seconds, and then suddenly he waved his hands and ran toward the buildings under construction. I was in total survival mode. I literally didn't care to look at where he waved or who he waved at. I shouted, "Run!" We ran to the Uber. I looked back to see the guy for half a second. He was also running, but not toward us, toward the construction site where he had waved earlier. I didn't look again to see where he was going. I only saw him. It was clear that running was a challenge for him physically, as he had a difficult time, and I continued running. We got in the Uber and went home. My girlfriend told me we didn't need to go to the police since they wouldn't do anything, and it would just take up our time when we had a guest. None of us managed to see where he waved to or who he waved at. We still don't know what the hell happened to this day. A year ago, I went to a band competition, and it was a great experience. While I was there, I met a really cute boy. At the time I was 16 and he was a nerd who liked video games just like me. He seemed like a completely normal guy. Despite being really shy, I somehow got brave enough to ask for his number. We started texting and I really liked him. He was funny, sweet, and into wholesome memes just like me. We eventually planned a date and went to the movies together. I had a really nice time. But then things took a weird turn. We were texting back and forth, asking each other random questions to get to know one another better. Everything was normal until he asked me, "What would you do in a zombie apocalypse?" I answered that I'd probably be the first to go, which honestly is true. I asked him the same question, and that's when he said something that really freaked me out. He said, "I think I'd be okay because I've always fantasized about killing people." For the next 10 minutes, he went into great detail, describing some seriously disturbing things about how exactly he'd do it, what he'd use, and how it would look and feel. I was horrified. I didn't know how to respond, so I awkwardly shifted the conversation and asked what his favorite Pokemon was. Yeah, I know, not the smoothest move, but I was completely thrown off. I ended the conversation that night and tried to act like everything was normal. But deep down, I was scared. I knew it wasn't okay. So I sent him a text saying that I needed to focus on studying for finals and couldn't continue dating. He was upset and kept asking to meet so I could explain why. I've always had trouble saying no, so eventually I caved and agreed to meet him. I know it was a stupid decision, but I just felt so bad. What if I misunderstood and he was just joking? My parents only agreed to let him come over to our house so I'd be safe. So he came over and now he knew where I lived. My entire family was home watching TV, and they all started teasing me about having a boy over, which made the situation even more awkward. He came into my room, sat on my bed, and eventually, I told him that he had really freaked me out with what he said. He immediately knew what I was talking about and said, "I knew it had something to do with that." Then he started telling me even more things, like how his school had told him at some point last year that he couldn't attend classes because he was a danger to himself and others at the school, and that they wouldn't let him back until he saw a psychiatrist who confirmed he was stable. He went on to say that he faked being okay during the meeting. This was a massive red flag for me. It made me wonder just how good of a liar he might be. I also knew a little about the incident that led to his being sent home, but I won't share that here because it's personal to him and quite triggering. He also told me that he has hallucinations at night and struggles to sleep. I was really freaked out. I kept telling him it was okay and tried to be understanding, but I knew I needed to keep my distance. He wasn't a bad person, but he clearly had some serious issues to work through, and I didn't feel safe around him. I tried to cut things off, but he kept texting me every day, asking to chat or meet up. Each time I said I couldn't. This went on for about 2 weeks. At one point, I told him I couldn't chat because I was performing at the teens club where we had originally met. He just showed up, grabbed my hand, and said, "Julie, I would do anything to be with you here tonight." He started telling me how he couldn't enjoy the things he loved anymore because we weren't together and how he wanted one more chance because he felt like we had great chemistry. I still said no even though it was really hard for me. Finally, I texted him saying that I didn't want to speak anymore because I felt like I was leading him on. He was very upset and tried to convince me otherwise, but eventually he agreed and we stopped talking, and that was it. I'm still kind of nervous because we live in the same rather small town, and he knows where I live. After everything happened, people who knew him told me that he was heartbroken, which is funny because we only went on one date. Apparently, he also told everyone that I was mean and fat, which I find amusing. So that's my weird story. I have a feeling more drama might come my way, and if it does, I'll be sure to update. Thanks for reading, and I hope you never have an experience like this one.